Shehnaz, Sony, welcome to Quantum Messages. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Alani, for inviting me to this gathering.
Thank you. Well, Shehnaz, you have had an incredible life journey so far and have had overcome many challenges, including societal suppression, trauma, patriarchal domination, and limiting cultural belief systems. You also immigrated to the United States through an arranged marriage. You went to school here in the United States at UC Irvine. However, through all of that, you were able to break free from what you coined in your book as a Mobius strip, a repetitive pre-programmed loop in which one is stuck in the same cycle over and over again. You also have quite the resume and have since become an aerospace engineer who has worked for Boeing and who is currently contributing to NASA's Artemis project, as well as being a quantum coach, energy healer, and spiritual alchemist. So with all of that, I mean, you're doing so much, you've overcome so many odds. What do you think was a force that propelled you forward to be able to start realizing, kind of waking up to this larger source reality and this quantum world that we're living in?
The biggest trigger for me was my awareness that what we see is just a very tiny spectrum of what really is. Mm-hmm. And the very fact that I feel like I'm extremely blessed that even though in a very deepest, densest part of my life, while I was being raised in Pakistan, I knew that what it is cannot be enough. Like I knew that there has to be more to this existence. And I think that that awareness was the reason I was able to keep expanding my own light to experience different aspect of me through different experiences.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you started really kind of embodying that? What was that force that pushed you forward? I mean, because there's so much that you had to overcome. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing was that when the trauma would occur in my life, like the first trauma of the FGM, like when these trauma would occur, I would always feel very alone. I would always feel very not being heard, not being able to express, even because in that particular case, I was told not to tell anyone. And so to me, the more the external event were shutting me down, the more I was becoming my own best friend. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I had nowhere where to go. And what I created an avatar. So it's interesting because I have been creating avatars of my own different versions without realizing I've been doing that. So I would create an avatar of a very old, wise woman who basically would become my confidant. And I would have a conversation with her when nobody else was able to hear me, right? So I would talk to her and tell her all my problems. So I was a very good, pious Muslim girl, and I prayed 5 times a day for a very long time. And in that prayer, I would have this avatar that would kick in, and then I would tell her every single problem that I had, and then I would ask her for guidance, and then she would give me guidance back. So I was already doing these type of things at a very early age, just by my own methodology. And then later on, as I went to mystery schools, and then I learned all the meditation. And now with all my creativity, I've created a different versions of meditation that I help clients embody, like make a tailored version of meditation that works for them. So because you can solve so many problems through those processes if you can create it. And when they start becoming, because technically every single thing that you're interacting with is an aspect of you, whether it is internal or whether it is external.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you think this older woman might be your guide from the unseen realms, like from the other side? Or is it something that you created, like you said, and imagined within your mind as an avatar?
Exactly. And to me, they both are in the same, because at the end of the day, universe is mental, right? And so she basically represented the aspect of my higher self. And as I said that, I never spend my energy with terminologies, because I had all these methods that I was creating and adopting in my own ways. And those methods became my go-to places. And later on, I was able to kind of get more validation that the method that I used was already really, really good methods. And then it became like, wow, like the whole world is start teaching us these methods that I already kind of was adopting, because we're never really, really alone, even when we think we are, right? And that was my coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. And so you always use this method as a child, so it came naturally, intuitively, and so you just carried it over as you grew, right? You grew up.
Exactly. Like it just changed form. It's because as I was adding more layers of understanding, understanding my own self and realizing that how much freedom I have in making that avatar also to be different. And right now, my avatar that I have looks like me, because before I wasn't giving myself a permission to have an avatar that would look like me. But now I realize that it is all different versions of you that's helping you meet your own self.
Mm-hmm. So because of that, because you call it an avatar, do you believe that we are living in a simulation?
So the whole simulation theory has a lot of weight, mainly because of the fact that we can easily get persuaded by all the parameters that creates the simulation. I mean, if you look around, people who play games, right, they are very much like Ready Player One movie, right? It depicts the world where people are consumed by that. And to me, simulation theory is 100% possible, but I do believe that it depends on your level of consciousness. If you are, if you believe that you are living in a simulation, you actually are, because our belief creates a reality. I personally believe that I already questioned the question, so I'm looking at the simulation as an observer.
Interesting. So yeah, I have a hard time with the simulation theory because based upon my own research in quantum physics, I feel like it's so complex and so deep. And if you just go outside and look at our world right now, there's so many layers to it. And so just because our consciousness, the collective consciousness of humanity right now is really focusing on technology, AI, simulation, and all these programming and that kind of stuff, it seems like we're focusing on this whole simulation thing. But personally, for me, I feel like it's beyond that. But I do agree with you that our thoughts do create our reality. And so if you are believing that it's a simulation, then it is a simulation. So
Exactly.
it becomes like, you're like, what is real and what is not? So it really becomes really fascinating when you start thinking of it like that. And it seems like right now you are working on multiple projects, I assume. And I believe you're still working on the Artemis project still. Working
Yes.
on that. What are some of the new things that you're doing right now?
So in the Artemis program right now, our focus is to really carry out the mission to go and live on a moon, right, for 1 week. That mission was supposed to happen in 2024, and now it has been deferred until 2027. And that will help everybody truly wrap their mind around the very fact that whether we went to the moon or not, and what exactly the moon is, and how does the moon interplay with our consciousness. With all my research on moon, both working on the program itself and outside of it, based on my personal evolution, I have to say that the moon is a very, very important aspect of our evolution and our expanding consciousness, because moon represents the subconscious mind, per the mystical teaching. And moon also does directly interact, I mean, with our moon cycle, right? That moon cycle that it interacts with, not only it affects the woman's monthly cycle or monthly hormonal chemical balance, but it also affects that how your CSF, your cerebral spinal fluid, truly oscillates. And that directly affects how your pineal gland works, and that directly affects how you see the world and how you discern the world through the illusion. So that directly interacts with what type of experience do you attract. So you see how incredibly intertwined this whole dance is.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you were saying that the moon affects our cerebral spinal fluid because of the gravitational pull between the dance between the Earth and the moon and the sun.
100%.
That's interesting.
100%. And there is an article written that actually talks about the crystal that we have in our pineal gland that directly gets influenced by the lunar cycle.
Mhm.
And then there's Santos Bonacci, and then there's others who have been researching this phenomena at the very deeper level to truly say that how do we activate our Kundalini is directly related to how the moon cycle works. So when you really start converging the lunar phase with yourself, and then it also is affected by when you are born. So just imagine, right? So there's a whole recipe for you to activate your pineal gland based on your birthday, based on the day that you are doing this ritual,
Mhm.
and then you activate that, and then you're able to merge with the entire cosmos, and then you become a cosmic channeler just by virtue of doing that, and then you actually see yourself as a whole, which means you see yourself as a source. So you no longer see yourself as a different aspect of you, and when you do that, then you go way beyond simulation. You pretty much become one with the source, and that's where the truth lies.
So, what is the science behind activating the pineal gland with the birthday? How does that work? How do you go about doing that?
So basically, there's a moon phase calendar cycle, and we can actually provide the link to your viewer, and I can
Okay.
send it to you. So what it does is that when you click on the link, it's going to give you the information about when does So if I'm a Libra, right? So I would look for the Libra, because every month there are 2 days, I think it's 2 days the where the convergence occurs. So those days, like it's almost like you have a higher a probability of becoming, activating the pineal gland, right? I mean, to me, like you can activate your pineal gland in a moment. Okay, that's how I operate. But there is a calendar that somebody has created to give you a little bit more guidance for people who really need that, in order for you to actually, those 2 days when your birth cycle is merging with the lunar phase, then those 2 days becomes important for you to be more aware of your CSF, your cerebral spinal fluid, and then you make sure that you kind of give the nurturing it needs, so you can truly, for the rest of the month, you are basically kind of like making it work and function. So it's almost like you are just enhancing the experience. You see my point? So that is, there's a tool out there that does that. And then there are many doctors and many scientists, including Santos Bonacci, who has video explaining that why cerebral spinal fluid is directly related to activating your pineal gland and activating your Kundalini and activating your consciousness, because it is basically a fluid. It's a fluid that is oscillating. And when it hits the right frequency and it tunes into the frequency of the cosmos, then you actually are able to tune into all the information that you need
Mm-hmm.
because of your change in the frequency.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. That's super fascinating. And that kind of links into, based upon your science background, when did you start realizing this link between science and metaphysics, and then the ability to be able to explain unusual phenomena through quantum physics?
So, so for me, curiosity is one
Yeah.
word that explains it all for me, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even when I was very young, and I would be very, very intrigued about things that nobody knew the answer to the question, like what is black hole, and like what are all these planets, and how can we visit them, and what can we do to visit them. Like I already wanted to do all of that when I was like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had like my family members who were like, most of my family members from my dad's side, they're all doctors and engineers, and some of them were able to go to America and live there. So when they would come back, because anybody who comes back from America, and when you're living in Pakistan, you almost feel like that they're like Martian, and you are like earthly being. So you would ask a question that, oh my God, please tell me, because you think that they have more knowledge than you do, because they're living in the most incredible country, which is America. So for me, I would interview my cousins when they would come back and ask them all these questions, and they were like, my God, I mean, I don't, because if you don't have the same curiosity as I do, you're not going to know the answer to the question that what is black hole, because that is not where the focus is. Just because you're living in America doesn't mean you know the answer to all the
Right.
questions. So for me, that opened me up to the fact that I'm going to find these answers on my own if I can't find it through my cousins or
Mm-hmm.
through people, or through, because there was no internet, there was no computer, there was no method, there was no book for me to get my answers. So I think the fact that my answers or my curiosity always stayed alive within me has brought me to all these different experiences in my life, where I would have never imagined working on a program that's all about colonizing Moon and Mars. At, at the age of 10, you would have come in my life and you would have said, okay, Shehnaz, I'm going to show you the video of your future. And I'm like, okay. And you would have shown me this video where we are talking about this. I'm like, no way, Jose, right? But that is exactly how life is, right? That's why I'm saying that no matter what the question is, no matter how impossible it is, don't ever let anybody stop you.
Mm-hmm. So you think part of it is your deep curiosity, just wanting to know, right? And seeking.
Wanting to know. And then, of course, I knew that science can help explain it to me. And then, if I can understand something and if I can believe in something, then I have no problem sharing it with the world because that to me is a natural thing. But first, I need to come home to it with myself. And then I can say that this is how I see it.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel that quantum physics helped you with that? Is that or more of like the mystery school merging with the quantum physics? Which one?
The both are two in a one because quantum physics basically says that when you observe, you affect the observation, right? I mean, that's the fundamental of quantum physics. And I understood that when I started working on, when I was prior to my book, I was researching it because I wanted to understand it, because I was converging science and spirituality to ensure that science and spirituality, because one is the right hemisphere and the other one is the left hemisphere, they both can that synchronize because that's where the answer lies. When I was doing my research is when I became aware that every single thing I learned in my mystical schools, in the mystery schools, was completely justified by everything that quantum physics explains. And that opened my eye to realizing that the both are two in the same. The only difference is that not everybody is ready to see the fact that one is explaining the other and vice versa, right? Because they're both two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel that the mystery school teachings, the mystical teachings, or the ancient teachings are more of the, like, almost like the archetypal language of what quantum physics actually is, and that now we're in our, this modern world, we're able to explain it in a more scientific way?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that the ancients might have left that information for us in the future, that they knew?
Yeah, because if you think about it, right, because time is not linear, right? So everything is converging to each other. So like, I mean, if you really understand that when quantum physics was actually discovered, it was 125 years ago, right? So truly, when you realize the fact that now we're talking about quantum physics, why did we not talk about it like 125 years ago, like the way we're talking right now? We could have been in a whole different, and of course, in some other universe, we actually are in 2025, but we're not in a place where we are now. Like, I mean, even now, I mean, you said you're a school teacher. I mean, do we teach these concepts in the school?
No.
And that to me is a pretty big hole.
Yeah. It is a huge hole. Yeah, we're really behind. We're only focusing on classical physics, the material world, not what's beyond.
That is such a limiting way of looking at things because, material world is a projection of everything non-material, non-physical. And the very fact that you're constantly only living through like a tiny, tiny speck of your existence is a very limited way of living. And even though we do have religion, which does cover the non-physical phenomena, but it doesn't connect the dot like quantum physics does. Partly because most people, they put everything in a box, right? They put religion in one box, they put school in one box, and they look at everything as a responsibility and obligation. And then they forget about the very fact that all of these things are meant to help them find themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, personally for me, I've been an experiencer myself. So I've had some very interesting paranormal phenomena that has happened in my life. And when I was young, starting at 15 with the menstrual cycle, which is interesting when I started menstruating. So there's that connection to the moon again. And I did not have an elder to help me explain it, to understand it on a deeper level. And so what helped me understand on a deeper level is science and quantum physics. I feel that has been able to help me explain why I am experiencing these things. And so I feel like that's like kind of like this bridge between metaphysics and quantum physics. And that's why I call my podcast Quantum Messages, because that's what I'm exploring, that I believe that we're receiving these quantum messages. when we start understanding things on a deeper level and connecting to the source. So I really connect with what you're saying. Have I talked to you via email about a couple months ago, and you had shared with me a video that you had recently published on in response to data that came out from Voyager 1 with Michio Kaku talking about that. And what's interesting is that there was potentially an image. I'm trying to find the actual information, but there was an image that came through. But the image changed based upon the observation of the scientists, right? From what I gathered. So I was wondering if you could talk more about that and what you feel was happening with that.
It's interesting because that image that the scientists saw, and they basically explained it as like an entity that basically was tall, white, bald, basically a kind of an advanced being. And by looking at that image, it wasn't just like that you're optically looking at the image, you're basically almost interacting with the image at the cellular level and at the level of non-physical level where your entire beingness gets transformed in the process. Like you start seeing the world differently just once you see that image. That to me was an incredible transformational experience for these scientists. And the few handful of scientists that experienced that, they were no longer the same person afterwards. And because of that, based on what I had viewed in that interview, it was stated that they made the entire project classified because they didn't want to, lose all the people in the process, right? Because the interesting thing is about these people that they start looking at the world like the way you and I are already looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
But to them, it was like almost like, oh my God, we're losing control. But to me, they basically found themselves by looking at those images. So those images became a tool for transformation. And I see that as a positive thing personally.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, the image that was described by his video very much aligns with the, if you listen to Dr. Michael Salla, he talks about, I think he talks about Nordic and he talks about all these things. And I feel like there's a lot of parallel going on with the being that they saw. And I personally think that all of these beings that people are seeing in different form is our versions, right? It's our version communicating with us and reminding us that how incredible we are and what is out there outside of this material existence.
So do you think possibly that those beings that we see, like for example, you said before that you've had a connection with star beings within your either dream state or hypnagogic state, right? In the past. And so I've had experience with that as well. I've had experience with star beings. Do you think that they might be our other present selves? Because all past, present, and future technically are happening all at the same time. And because we're quantum entangled, we must be quantum entangled with these beings. So potentially we have some type of connection with them, or maybe there are other present selves that are communicating with us.
Yes, because all of them is true. Because at the end of the day, whatever we intend, we interact with, right? So that part is constantly happening at the level, at the speed that we can't even comprehend. So when that is constantly happening, and then when we consciously do it, of course, then it becomes even more heightened and more enhanced and more transformative. So at the end of the day, like Deepak Chopra says, right, that we are pretty much, like everybody is just showing up for you to help you understand yourself. But the only person who really, really is real is just you. So when you really look at the world from that perspective, then everything you interact with is just another aspect of you. And whether that aspect comes within your own versions or within someone else's version, because every single thing that we interact with when you really understand the philosophy of a time and a light, there is nothing happening instantaneously as we perceive it.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe, based upon your research, that like all dimensions are kind of intermixed with each other? And like you said, frequency and vibration is, the expression of the universe. So, I mean, just because we are in a specific frequency right now, we are experiencing this reality. But is it possible that there are multiple other realities almost nested within this reality happening right next to us, but we are not being able to see it because our frequency is different from that reality? So is it do you think it's possible that all realities and everything's happening within, like right next to us, within us, but we just are not tuned into it?
That is true. And it's not even right next to us, it's within us, right? Because we are projecting it and we are interacting with it. So it's all kind of like, so yeah, the thing is that in order for us to process information, because we do process information in this confined body, slower compared to in all other forms. So when we are in this limited form in this body, and then the thing is we chose to come in this limited physical body so that we can experience the material realm, right? So there was a reason for that, and because of that immersive experience we wanted to have, we are required to a little bit get lost in the experience, right? Because that is the only way we can truly be immersive. So that is kind of an interesting thing, right? Because on one hand, we're required to be immersive, right? So that's why we say be from the world, but not from it, right? That is the poetry from Allama Iqbal in Pakistan. And I just love it. It's like, he says that, Jahan hai tere liye, tu nahi jahan ke liye. What it means, the same, is that, you are, the world is for you. You are not for the world. You see my point? So it's a very interesting way of explaining the very deep concept. And that's what Allama Iqbal, can you believe? I mean, he was one of the most incredible poet. We had to understand him, study him in Pakistan. And when I look at his poetry, I mean, it was just like Khalil Gibran, right? All of these amazing people who basically were telling you information through poetry and through philosophy. And that pretty much says that it is all very intertwined, right? So we have to constantly dance in a way where we can become immersive, right? Because we have to be, but then we also become observant. So we become immersive, we become observant. So when we do that in a way that we can keep a balance, because it's all about a balance. Because when we're here in this physical form, if you can come up with a balance, then you can create all the playgrounds you want to create, right? For your own self. And when you do that, because you are doing it and you are learning how to hop them and stuff, then you kind of become master in shopping for reality, which is my course that I teach, But the whole concept is kind of like interwoven with that mindset, and that requires you to be aware of the awareness.
So do you believe that the universe is thoughts, that we are basically thoughts or itself, and that those thoughts are creating these kind of deeper realities, and the thoughts combined together are creating like these geometric realities almost? I mean, they're just so layered and complex.
That is very true. But I know that there is a quote that says, "I think, therefore I am."
Yeah.
However, in my book that I'm writing, the next one, I say, "I think, feel, and sense, therefore I am." So basically, what I do is, because sense is where the physical realm is, right? And then feel is where the emotional realm is, and thinking is where the mental realm is. Now, all of these realms are like right on top of each other because we are not separated, right? We are always doing everything simultaneously. The only reason we have to choose word to separate our expression is because of our processing speed.
And do you believe that our processing speed is accelerating or decelerating based upon new technological advancements that are coming forth?
Oh, that's a very good question, actually. You know what? It depends on your personal choice. Because if you think about it, if you completely start relying on the AI for every single thing to the point where you're no longer driving the car, you're no longer doing anything manually, you've even forgotten what the steps are to get there. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It depends on what your actual goal and mission is in this world, right? So at the end of the day, it is a choice, basically, that whether you want to work on your processing speed or not. However, our processing speed will always be way, way slower compared to AI or quantum computing, right? There's just no comparison. But at the end of the day, you can still choose which reality to hop on, right? Which hologram to be in and which timeline to choose from. So that power, you have it. And when you are aware of your experiences, then your processing speed can heighten where you can do time dilation, which is how I operate. So I play many roles, right? I have a like full-fledged role right now. I mean, as working for NASA as an engineer, and then having to kind of like working with my client to help them and help them choose a better life when they feel like they're kind of in
Mhm.
prison. And then having to have my own quest for understanding consciousness, and then as a mother of 4 kids and all that, I mean, my list goes on and on. But I choose the playground where I show up, and then I have a blast. But I kind of decide when to choose which playground based on my own quest. So
Mhm.
what I've done is I've transformed my life from being led by external um, to internal. And
Mhm.
recently, I actually, relocated myself physically to Florida, and that was a very huge change for me because I was working every single day, but I was driving to my work every single day, and I
Mhm.
changed that story because I wanted to spend the time I was driving doing other things.
Mhm.
And for me to open that portal where I can give myself a permission to do that while I have my cake and eat it too required a lot of convergence because that wasn't a very easy thing to come, especially NASA does not encourage people to work remote.
Mhm.
The point of the story is that I was able to create that. And that is the whole point of this conversation is that when you can adjust your speed based on what you want, then
Mhm.
that means that you are truly working with your potential that is given to you.
Mhm.
So you can, whether you use AI or whether you're not, it's a choice. As long as you are able to do what you want to do, then it's good. But when you become slave to the very technology that is supposed to enhance our life, then you have given your power away.
Do you believe that people are I mean, a lot of people seem to be giving their power away right now. And I've also heard you say that, we have 8 billion people on this planet, but very few of those people are becoming aware or are aware. What do you feel about that
I
now?
think that I think that anytime when I see that people are prioritizing the machine over human, I feel like they're giving their power away. So if you go to the restaurant and you see a family sitting and everybody's on their phone or on their iPad or on their YouTube or whatever, or they have the most people have earpiece on all the time nowadays. And even when you talk to them personally, right, they're more tuned to somebody who's not there physically than somebody who's right in front of them. When you're constantly going to choose only the communication that comes through your earplug, then
Mhm.
you're making that choice. And ultimately, that's going to become your world. And ultimately, you're not going to need any real human interaction because you can truly live a very fulfilling life without ever seeing a human.
I mean, so I mean, it seems like a lot of people are going towards that. So are we going to be living side by side? Part of humanity is going to be this in this virtual world, and then the rest of us are going to be interacting with both, and creating
Exactly.
our worlds. Okay.
Yeah, because like the Wally movie, right? The Wally movie, and since you're a teacher, I would really encourage you to tell your students to kind of that's a choice, right? The Wally world represents the world where we are all heading towards right now.
Mhm.
And to me, we are all going to choose based on our intention and based on our goal and based on our mission and based on what do we want to do, what kind of playgrounds do you want to be in, and when we and that choice will merge you with the people who are in the same boat. So I actually think that for me, I'm not going to be living in the Wally world, right? That's what I have chosen for myself, and I would keep choosing expanded consciousness. And whether I have 1% or whether I have 10% standing with me, I'm not attached to that because just like John Livingston Seagull book, I have chose every single time I've made decisions, I have felt very alone physically, but I know that non-physical world is very expensive because even right now I relocated to Florida and where I have relocated myself to, I don't know anyone.
Mhm. And you're living by yourself, and your children, I'm sure, are off in college, I assume,
Yes,
or
yes.
adults.
Most
Yeah.
of them are off in college, and one of my son is extremely independent businessman. So
Mhm.
yeah, most of my boys are already in their own world, and they are becoming their leader in their own world, which
Mhm.
is the reason I gave myself a permission to actually figure out where I want to park myself on this planet Earth, because I had to decide that, so that way I can create my own new Earth.
So so you brought up new Earth. Do you believe that all of us, based upon our perception and our observation of what is happening around us and what we focus on, that we can create our own Earth and our own experience?
100%. That is the power. The power we seek is the power within, right? That is the whole, that is the whole purpose of this book, The Quantum Being, right? Is that I am basically saying that we all have the power to create the type of Earth we want to live in, the type of life we want to have, the type of surrounding we want to have, the type of people who can come to us. All of that is completely up to us, because our vibration, our frequency, and our broadcasting the message to the cosmos of who we are and who we want to become is pretty much the name of the game.
What do you believe makes people feel limited
Is there
from being able to create their own world?
It's because a lot of people live in their traumas. A lot of people get too much wrapped around in their experiences. Like, I mean, just think about it. I have gone through shit, right? In many, many ways. If I would have just wanted to stay there and wanted to keep talk about it and wanted to keep feeling sorry for me, I could have easily done that. So that's a choice. At the end of the day, for me, it was more like that. Okay, what did I learn from it? And keep the learning, let go of the baggage, let go of the trauma, let go of this dense experience that you had. Because when you keep staying that, the word PTSD, everybody just milks that. And to me, every single person has PTSD. But the point is, because we can all, none of us are trauma free, because we are impressionable species. So anytime when anything happens, I mean, for me, it may be that the trauma was having to go through FGM. For somebody, it may be that the trauma is that they didn't get the iPad as a gift. You see my point? Because the intensity of the trauma may be different, but it is a trauma from their perspective. And once you decide that it's a trauma, it is a trauma. So now it's up to you how long you want to hold on to that, how long you want to, just cry over it, right? All of these are choices. So the biggest challenge we have is that we stay in our past and we keep messing up our present tense. And then our future depends on our present. So here is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Do you believe that humanity is like, we're here together as a collective, that what you decide and what you perceive and the choices you make and what I make and what everyone makes around us will affect the way that we move forward in the future? Like, there is still this collectiveness upon our planet where we can actually affect the other person's life.
100% we are interconnected. There's no question about it. The cause and effect is much more expensive for people that you are interacting on a regular basis, right? So whoever that is, like, you can call that your tribe, right? And tribe doesn't mean it has to be all in person there, wherever, right? So like in my case, my boys are going to be my tribe always, right? No matter where they are, because I'm a mother. My mom, my brother, my sister, they're all living internationally, but they are my tribe, right? So the point is that you are affecting them. But at the end of the day, they are also all choosing what hologram and what timeline they want to live in. And most of the time, it's very different than what I would choose, because they're very different consciousness level. And everybody has their own story, and to each to their own applies. So that's where it becomes an art of living, is that how do you love the people, but not get bogged down by their choices? And to me, it's very important to separate your choices from the people you love, because at the end of the day, we are all here in our solo journey.
Interesting. Very interesting. So do you believe that, for example, there are these massive collective events that have happened, like, for example, our experience with COVID, in 2020, or let's say a world war, or, something really cataclysmic or big happens on the planet where it affects everybody. Even though we are experiencing different realities, and like you said, like, you're in your own holographic kind of, universe or earth, there's still this, like, where it's a collective thing that's happening. Why is that? How can we experience, like, our own little different realities, but then also have these big events that are affecting all of us at the same time?
It's because, like if you think about it, and that's what it is, right? When you go outside, the world outside from your home, right? Your home, you can create whatever you want based on whatever is available to you, right? But as soon as you go outside and you go to Walmart or you go to Walgreens, you're going to run into the bureaucracy of the system or whatever the system has made available for you to interact with, right? Because it's based on a consensus reality. So to me, the choice you have is that how are you going to react to it? Because there is a density that comes with the mindset. So when you look at the bell curve, right, the bell curve, the top of the bell curve represents where the majority of the consciousness is always going to reside. And that level may not really match with yours because depending on where you are in the bell curve, right? And that to me is how I see the world. So, like, I will use an example of a COVID. So, in my case, COVID happened in March 2020 for people who are living in the United States of America. I actually in 2019 had a very challenging health experience that was almost could have killed me, right? So I went through hospitalization. I went through a complete feeling half of my body like completely like not feeling it, not able to walk, not able to drive. So I went through all of that in 2019. And by the time the end of 2019 came, I had gone through my own journey and lesson and had evolved into a whole different being. Now, when COVID occurred for majority of the people, I was very fortunate that I was living in Huntsville, Alabama, because that place was not as dictatorial as other places were. So I had a freedom to go and hike without having to wear a mask and do things that I could do. So I was not feeling as cooped up and messed up as majority of the people may be feeling it. I didn't get the COVID. I didn't take the vaccine. The point I'm trying to make is that my experience wasn't exactly matching with majority of the people's experience. You see my point?
Yeah. So yeah, based upon your own person. Yeah, you had a completely different experience.
Completely different experience.
Yeah.
And for me, I went through health way prior to that. So COVID looked like a piece of cake to me. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm taking it lightly, but see, it all becomes a comparison because I mean, it's all about like, what you're comparing it with.
Right. Do you feel that a lot of this is for humanity, especially in the United States? So, like, I'm focusing on the United States because I'm living in the United States. So you're like, if you're in Europe, I'm sure people are having a totally different experience. Middle East, different experience. Africa, wherever you are in the world. But I mean, because of the technology, it is pre-programming people to believe that it's things are really bad, but maybe they're not really bad.
Exactly.
So yeah.
100%. And see, that is the biggest challenge we have is that we tend to believe in everything that other people are sharing with us rather than our own intuition. That is one of the biggest flaw we have. And the only thing that's going to save us is listening to our own truth, right? Because we all have the truth beating in our heart, right? The truth is there. And when we really give ourselves the enough, silence within our thought, within our mind, when we really give ourselves a permission really to actually let go of this illusion of being whatever labels you have and whatever titles you have and whatever names you have, and just kind of realize that we are all one, in a big scheme of life, right? At the source level, we're all one. So when you kind of go into that level of consciousness and when you tap into that power, then the answer comes to you. The information comes to you, the discernment comes to you. And when you start listening to that, then you are not going to be distracted by the media or by what your friend says or by what your family says or what your boss says. Because, at the end of the day, you have to stay in your own truth and in your own power because that's the only way you can actually maximize your own potential.
What do you think? Why do you think we have incarnated on this planet? What do you think the purpose of all this is?
Is to remind ourselves that how powerful we are even when we are separated from the source.
And do you believe that you are experiencing potentially on other different lives, other different selves on other different planets around the universe right now?
Oh, 100%. And depending on the experiences that you choose, you actually feel your other version start showing up for you. Like, when you look up in the sky and then you feel like the version that is looking down is different, right? When you are interacting, because when you interact, like I'm interacting with you, you're interacting with me, we are basically interacting with each other and we're mirroring each other, right? So like you are a version of me and I'm a version of you. So that's the only reason we were able to like slow down enough to interact.
Interesting. Very interesting. And based upon what you're saying, it sounds like you are looking forward to the future, that you are excited. It seems like you're excited about humanity's future. Where do you believe we're moving towards in the future?
Yeah, so that is the choice, right? And for me, I can speak for myself. I'm definitely moving towards more liberation, more freedom, more
Mhm,
expressive consciousness, whether I'm in this body or not, it truly doesn't matter.
mhm,
But that is pretty much my game plan, is to keep on evolving, keep on having fun, and keep on learning through experiences. However, I have a little bit more choices in the experience that I choose now, right? Because I don't want to go through the dense experience of trauma and things that I went through in Pakistan. Now it's more like, let's have some fun, let's have some experiences that is a little bit more lighter at the level and kind of make you ascend while you're living.
mhm. Do you believe that humanity will be able to make it to the cosmos, beyond the moon, beyond Mars?
Oh, 100%, because at the end of the day, everybody will ultimately merge with all their versions
Mhm.
and with the source, right? That is just the way it is. We are actually all one at the one level anyway. It is all like, how long do you want to spend and what kind of density is the choice that everybody's making.
Mhm. So do you believe that how many for going to the moon, what do you believe that symbolically, I mean, you kind of talked about at the beginning, but what it really symbolically represents for humanity?
It represents that humanity, when they put their mind together, they can do the impossible. I mean, because right now, in the material world, in the physical world, truly having to go and live on a moon is a lot of, it's a lot of odd you have to kind of go against, right? There's a gravitational level, there is all these things where we have to work together. Like NASA has to work with SpaceX and Blue Origin to make that happen, right? So it's not like NASA can do it by themselves. So the whenever it's a community building event,
Mhm.
and that is what we all need to start focusing on, is that how do we all believe in something, like if everybody, all the people who are working on the Artemis program at NASA, right, they all believe that we should live on moon. That is the only reason we're working on it, right? So that becomes a community by itself. So to me, I think that we need to start focusing on what do we want to create by combining our light, because when we combine our light we make it more powerful, right? That's why when we have these large conferences with Joe Dispenza, people start healing, is because of that power of many, because they all want the same thing. So if you all want the same thing, you're going to get it faster. So I think that we need to hone into that power, and that is the reason the whole quantum being, right, is that if everybody can do the work to show up as a quantum being in their own life, then they can become useful when they're part of the community. Because then you're not coming with your baggage and distributing your baggage. You are actually coming with your light and you're distributing your light. And that's
Right.
what it's all about. Is like, why not? That's why I'm like, keep your house clean. And then that way, when you come to my house, you're not going to make it dirty.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the future, and especially because my son is going to be majoring in electrical engineering, and he definitely might move towards being an aerospace engineer. So I personally, for me, like I feel like because I'm connected to him, that might be part of my life in the future too, because I'm seeing it through my child, or observing my child, not seeing it through him. So you got to take
Good,
that
good,
step
good. I'm
back.
so glad that you gave me that distinction, because you don't want to be a
Yeah.
helicopter mama and you
Yeah.
don't want to affect his future just because you want to live through him, because living through him
Right.
is never good for you. But
Yeah.
you're going to be admiring him, you're going to be sending
Yeah.
him good juju so he can do the best of the best.
Yeah.
Which school is he going to right now?
So he's gonna be graduating from high school, and then he'll be applying to MIT, all the big schools,
Okay.
MIT,
Okay.
Stanford, UCLA,
Okay. That
all over
sounds
the
good.
place. So we'll see where he goes, but it's it's interesting. So I just it's so huge and it's so exciting, that humanity can move towards that. I mean, even living on the moon and then living on Mars, like I mean, if we can make it to that point without something crazy happening prior, I mean, it's just there's so much potential for us. And like you said, really living within your light or being the light and connecting your light with the light of others is so important. And based on that, what message would you like to give to humanity right now?
Okay, so I'm going to actually read something from my book, because I
Yeah.
figure It's a
Yeah.
very good idea. So, what I'm going to say to everyone is that as we undertake the daunting task of transformation, we embark on the journey that will ultimately become habitual, automatic, and effortless, akin to a rocket leaving the Earth. At first, the initial launch requires enormous power, then less and less as it leaves the Earth's gravitational field. Finally, the rocket moves through space and under its own momentum, breaking all barriers beyond imagination to traverse new worlds.
Hmm. Very nice. Breaking all barriers beyond the imagination. Yes, definitely. And is that the advice that you would like to give the younger generation as well?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
because I feel like our younger generation is going to do better things
Hmm.
because they don't have the baggage that we have collected over our traumas.
Yeah. No, it's very, very powerful. Tell us where we can find your work. We know that you're, working on the Artemis project. That's totally separate in NASA, but your other work that you do and the other stuff that you provide.
The other work is my website is shehnazsoni.com.
Hmm.
And you can definitely provide the link to that. And then in that, if you go to the concierge service, I'm actually providing more like a deeper level of one-on-one coaching, where we're not just like we're making the change in your life that you really have desired for forever. Because it's time that people can start embodying all the teaching of the quantum being, and then that way they can become the beacon of light for others.
Wonderful. You had also mentioned that you are writing a new book. Can you give
Yeah.
us a little hint into what it is?
Well, so that book actually is because that book I started writing before I made the change in my life.
Hmm.
And that book is going to actually share the deeper level of embodiment of the quantum being. And my goal is to explain how I transform my life to the extent that I have, because what I did in the quantum being was amazing, but what I'm doing now is taking it another extra notch into liberation and freedom, and really living a life of bliss despite of the density of this physical world.
Hmm. That sounds amazing. And will you be including a lot of quantum physics information
Oh
in there?
yeah,
Oh, good.
it's basically quantum being next
Next
chapter, and it
next
just goes
level.
exactly. You're right. It is a next level quantum being because it's time to bring that because with everything that I've been doing since then, because that book was in 2022, and in the last 3 years, everything that I've done, my research and everything, I'm capturing it in that book. And because I haven't given myself a deadline, I'm taking my sweet time because I really want to, because that book is going to carry the essence of the depth that I want to go in, right?
Mhm.
So that's to me is like is my fun playground writing books.
Oh, that's good. You seem so busy. I bet like every single part of your day is taken up with something, doing something.
Yeah, 100%. And especially right now, I recently moved, right? So it's really
Yeah.
crazy busy in my life. But as soon as I get 100% settled, it's been only 1 week since I moved into this
Wow.
house that you're seeing in the background. And
Mhm.
I had to like unpack like 200 plus boxes and by myself, right? And then at the same time, you have to establish all of your connections with your utility and all this, and then work full time too for NASA. So yeah,
Well, you're super busy, and I thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate all of the work that you've done and just sharing all of the wealth of knowledge and love and light to all of us. Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.